Hi students, today I am discussing about friction. What is friction? So friction is the retarding force which acts tangentially to the contact surface when a body actually moves or tends to move over the surface of another body. Suppose this is a surface, a body is placed on the surface. Now a force is applied on the body to move it or tends to move the body. Then between these contact surfaces here a tangential force acting like this. This force opposes the external force, external applied force. This tangential force is known as friction. What is the origin of friction? If we consider two bodies, wherever one body is placed over another body, the contact surfaces are smooth. But if we observe by microscope or if we take some microscopic view, then all the surfaces are not smooth surface. They are all rough surfaces. There are some hills and valleys over the surface. So whenever we want to move one surface over another like this, there is an interlocking in between these two surfaces. This interlocking provides a resistive force. Suppose this is the applied force acting on the body. Due to the interlocking in the opposite direction, there is a resistive force acting in between these two surfaces. Here, due to the interlocking, there are a resistive opposing force acting. This resistive force is known as friction. Scientist F. P. Bowden and his co-workers gives a satisfactory explanation of origin of friction. They explained that the total actual area of the contact surfaces between two bodies is very less than the apparent contact area. If this is the body is placed over another body and it is the microscopic view, then whenever this body is moved over this body, then the contact points or the contact area is very less. That means actual contact area is very less comparing the overall contact area. These are the actual contact area. Therefore, in these points or these areas, the pressure between these two bodies is very high. Due to the high pressure at the points of contacts between these two bodies, there is a molecular force generates at those points. These forces are attractive in nature and this is adhesive force. Now, if we consider two bodies, there is a molecular bond between these two bodies. So for these points of contact, their molecular force generates. Now, if the upper body is moved by an external force, then these molecular bonds breaks and new bonds produce between the new contact points. During this process, there is a vibration, and due to the vibration, wave generates. Now, these waves or this energy of vibration can increase due to the random motion of these two bodies, and due to this energy the body heats up. There are some advantages of friction. Friction is used to apply brake on a moving car to stop it. Friction is essential to drive a car because when the wheels are spinning around about its axis, then due to the friction between the tire and the road, it can move forward. Friction is also essential for walking, otherwise we can slip. Whenever we feel cold, we can rub our hand to warm it. During rubbing, friction generates which produce heat. When work is done against the friction, it produces heat. Uh, this is useful in striking a match. There are many disadvantages of friction. Friction reduces the efficiency of machine. It causes wear and tear of the moving parts and produces more heat. Therefore, it decreases the life of the machine. Therefore, to minimize the friction, we need wheels, bearings, rollers, and lubricants. To reduce air friction, high-speed automobiles and aeroplanes are built in a special shape that is called streamline shape. Types of friction. All forms of friction may be classified into following categories. First one is static friction. Whenever there is a tendency of motion between two bodies in contact, but there is no relative motion exists, then the friction is known as static friction. For static friction, no relative motion between two surfaces. Here, a body is placed on a surface. A force is applied here, but the body remains at rest. Therefore, the frictional force acting tangentially in opposite direction, that is F. So here applied force is equal to F, and frictional force as the body remains at rest whenever the external force is applied or tends to rest, then F is equal to F. Suppose we apply here F is equal to 5 Newton, then the body is at rest. We increase the force F is equal to 6 Newton, again the body is at rest. Then at that condition frictional force is 6 Newton also. Now if we apply external force, that is 10 Newton, then the body having a tendency that it can move. Therefore, this 10 Newton is the maximum value of force which is applied that the body tends to move. Then this force is known as the limiting friction. Therefore, the limiting friction is the maximum value of static friction. In between the limiting friction, the whatever be the applied force, the frictional force remain same as the applied force. For that reason, friction is a self-adjusted force. So whenever there is no relative velocity and force is applied on the body and body tends to move or remain rest, then the opposing force acting tangentially in between two surfaces is known as static friction. The maximum value of static friction, that is limiting friction. And when the force is increases and it is up to the limiting friction, then the frictional force also gradually increases, and as the body remains at rest, therefore there is no unbalanced force, so frictional force is equal to the applied force. For that reason, friction is a self-adjusted force. Second one is kinetic friction. Whenever force is applied on a body and there is a relative velocity between the body and the surface, then the frictional force exists here is known as kinetic friction. So for kinetic friction, there is a relative velocity. Third is sliding friction. Whenever a body slides over another body or tends to slide, then the frictional force which opposes the motion of the body is known as sliding friction. Another is rolling friction. Whenever a body is rolling or tends to roll on another body, then the opposing force which is acting over here, that is known as rolling friction. There is another type of friction that is known as fluid friction. Whenever a body is moved through a stationary fluid, that is a gaseous or liquid medium, it experiences a frictional force that is known as fluid friction. Aeroplane, spaceship, boat, or any type of vehicle which moves through fluid, it having a specific shape to overcome fluid friction. That shape is known as streamline shape.